Have you ever wondered how to obtain true success? And I'm not just talking about success in one area, but success in all areas. Not necessarily how you can have it all, but how you can design your life around the success that you actually want to have. Maybe that is having it all, but maybe that's just having a better relationship with your spouse or with your kids. Maybe that's having better health in general, or maybe that's having a more effective role within your job, within your community, or within the impact that you actually make with those around you. Hi, I'm Nate Tutas, and I'm the founder of Mind Vault, and what I believe is that success is just within the reach that you have, but the big problem that most people have when it comes to success is that they focus on the wrong things. And if you focus your mind on the right things, you can actually create a direction for yourself and a direction that allows you to actually achieve the success you want. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down my philosophy around success, the way that I actually think about success itself, so that you can model that behavior and then build that type of success for yourself. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the most brilliant minds in self-education. Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson. I've had the opportunity to work directly with Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-founder of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and one of the guys who actually originally mentored Tony Robbins on his journey. A lot of what Tony Robbins uses is based on Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and one of the things I'm going to share with you today, and how I actually came up with the formula I'm going to share with you, I actually discovered by listening directly to Dr. Richard Bandler when he talked about how our brains don't necessarily go towards a set objective. We actually work in a set direction. So if you aren't giving your brain a direction to actually move in, something to move towards, then one of the biggest challenges that you have is you focus on a goal, you reach that goal, and then all of a sudden you wonder what's next. You start thinking, hey, I reached this great thing. I attained the health that I wanted. I got the relationship. I finally got the girl. Or I got that job. I got the corner office. I made the $1 million. But then everything falls flat. So the purpose of this particular philosophy is so that you don't only reach it, but you know the direction you're moving, and you can continue to move in that direction from now all the way into the future. So there's 3 parts to this particular strategy, and there's one core thing you have to do before you actually start with that. So I'm going to talk about the strategy itself. I'm going to talk about some of the core principles that evolved as I developed this strategy. I'm going to talk about how you actually can take that strategy and apply it as tactics in your life so that you can actually reach the success that you want to have. So the strategy that I'm actually referring to is what I call the DAI success philosophy, or the direct, adapt, iterate framework for your success. So what you have is the D, which is direct. You then have the A, which is for adapt. And then you have the I, which is for iterate. Now, all of this starts by figuring out the 3 core areas of your life and what I like to refer to as your prime directive. Your prime directive is what actually drives your life. The prime directive is what you actually want to achieve in the 3 core areas of health, the core area of wealth, and the core area of relationships. You see, most people only focus on 1 or 2 of these 3 core areas. They focus on their health and getting in great shape, and they focus on their wealth so that they attain the actual financial success they want to achieve. But as they're going through that process, they lose their family. They lose the connection that they wanted to have with their kids, or they lose their spouse and they end up with a divorce. The other thing that happens is they focus on their wealth, getting the job they want, and the relationships, having the family and the love life and everything that they want to have. But along the way, they let their health slip. And maybe they have a heart attack midway through life. Or maybe they find that they don't have the energy to actually play with their kids or do the things that they need to do to continue to date their wife over time, right? Or their husband, whichever. So you want to focus on what it is that you want from all 3 of these things. And that really becomes your mission in life. It becomes your prime directive, or the thing that drives you, the thing that actually sets your direction. So once you have your actual prime directive, for me, I want to actually unlock the potential in the middle class. Okay? That's my goal in life. That's the thing that I feel that I've actually been called here by God to do. It's the thing that I feel like it lights me up when I think about helping people to actually unlock the potential in themselves. And when I thought about how I could actually determine, because one of the things that you have to ask yourself as you're going through this process is, how will you know that you've actually attained that? So if I've attained the level of health I want, the level of wealth I want, and the level of relationships, and if I'm going to unlock the potential in the middle class, the only way I've been able to think of how I would actually quantify that would be in a dollar amount based off of the value that I create and the value that I then get in return. Because I also believe that when it comes to value and you price your offers at roughly 10% of the value you think you'll get someone. So if I had a $100,000 offer, that should actually produce $1 million worth of value for the person who purchases it. So I thought about it and I thought, well, that would probably be a $1 billion business, because that would mean I created $10 billion in value within the market. And to me, that would unlock the potential in the middle class. So for me, I unlock the potential in the middle class and create a $1 billion business, a $1 billion coaching organization in the process. And that organization allows me to have optimal health. Now, I've defined what optimal health is for me, but you'll have to define what optimal health is for yourself as well. And then once I actually have the optimal health, it gives me the freedom to spend the time with my family. Because one of the things that we want, my wife and I have a daughter, and so for us, we want to be able to have the freedom to travel, the freedom to enjoy time together, the freedom to support each other along the way, along that journey, and to do all of those things together, to enjoy that adventure of life as we go along the way. So once you have your prime directive, this now helps you to actually set your direction. So each day, you then ask yourself, am I moving in that desired direction? Are the goals that I have set for myself, are the objectives that I'm working towards today helping me to get closer to this prime directive? And it acts like a GPS, because if I ever find that I'm off, if I ever find the things I'm doing aren't helping me to build that coaching organization, or I'm letting my health slip, or I'm reducing the amount of freedom that I have with my family, then I use it simply to get myself back on track and refocus on my direction. So once you have your direction, one of the things you want to do in order to set that and figure out if you're actually on the right track is a gap analysis. So you look at where you are now, you look at where it is you want to be, and then you analyze what that gap actually is, okay? And this gap is what you're going to look for how you can actually determine what you need to work on and the direction you need to set. Because when you set your direction, you know where you are now, you know where you want to get to, and the direction is based on the next milestone that you actually need to hit. Right? So you work towards that next milestone, and that is the first gap that you're working on, and that's the first direction you set for yourself. So once you know what that gap is, then you want to look at 4 core areas to determine how you would make the adaptation. The first area that you want to look at are, what are the roadblocks? What is it that's actually stopping you from having what you want? What are those roadblocks? The next thing you look at are, what are the impacts? What impacts, both positive and negative, right? Positive, negative, are coming from those roadblocks. So I'm working towards this particular gap that I have, and because I haven't reached that yet, these are the negative impacts. It's not allowing me to do X, Y, or Z. But the positive, if I was actually to get through that roadblock, would be A, B, and C, right? Very basic, but it's the thing that you look at to generate both the negative and the positive, okay? The next thing that you look at when it comes down to it is the timeline. So if I have a goal to get to, $1 billion, right? So if I need to close the gap between 0 and $1 million, then what is the timeline that I actually want to close that gap within? Maybe that's within a year's time, right? So that's my direction that I'm going towards. If I'm looking at planning an entire year out, I'm looking at closing the gap between 0 and 1 million as an example, right? And then from there, the next thing you want to do, we go back to that question. It's what are the results, right? How will I know? And once you know how you actually got there and you actually obtained that objective, now when I get to this point, I can say, I know because I've reached $1 million within 1 year's time span. As I've done that, I've improved my health in this way, so I know that I have optimal health, and my relationships are thriving because of this, this, and this. I want to detail out what those are. And then I want to be able to take a look at these areas and say, what are the adaptations that I need to make? If for whatever reason I'm not moving in the direction financially that I want to go, what changes do I need to make in my business? What changes do I need to make in the offers that I'm providing? What changes do I need to make in how I'm actually going to market or who I'm actually attracting to my business? The next thing I want to look at is from a health perspective. Do I actually have optimal health? And if these are the results that I need to get, what adaptations do I need to make in order to get there? Do I need to adjust my diet? Do I need to adjust my fitness regimen? Do I need to adjust my sleep if I'm not getting enough sleep and I'm not able to actually recover and recharge the way that I need to? What are those adaptations that I need to make? And then same thing with the relationship. If the relationship I'm defining as I know I have that result because every month my wife and I go on a specific date night where it's just the two of us. We go and enjoy some time together. We get a babysitter to come and watch our daughter, and we take the time that we spend together and we reset as a couple. Well, it's very simple then to figure out, am I doing that every single month? And if I'm not, make the adaptations I need to make in order to make that happen. So once you know what the adaptations are, you then make the adaptations and then you take action. You actually iterate and you go through the process again and again. And this works as an actual loop. So it actually works if this is the D, this is the A, and this is the I. It actually works in a loop that comes back to itself. So my goal, my objective here, my prime directive is looping through this process. I direct my mind, I adapt, I make changes and adaptations based off of the information that I receive back from how I'm doing at actually moving in the direction that I want. If I'm off course, I reset my direction and I move in that direction. And if I'm on course, then I continue moving. I double down on that particular direction. And then I iterate through the process. And with each iteration, I have to come back and say, okay, how well did I actually do? How am I doing at actually reaching my desired result? Then I go through the process again. I direct my mind towards what I want it to be. I perform the gap analysis, right? This is the actual gap. Perform the gap analysis. I adapt, I iterate. And the process iterates again and again and again. Now, some core principles to actually keep in mind when it comes to the direct, adapt, and iterate process here is that you want to think through these different steps as a couple of core things to keep in mind, okay? The first core thing to keep in mind is that simplicity scales and complexity kills, okay? Simple scales, complexity kills, okay? And when you think about that, the more simplistic you keep this, your simple directive, simple adaptations, quick, fast, simple iterations, the more you'll be able to actually iterate through this process and do it more and more effectively each and every time. The other principle that you want to actually keep in mind, let's say this is principle 1, the other principle that you want to keep in mind is that if simplicity scales and complexity kills, then whoever can iterate the most times through the process will win. Iteration wins. One of the biggest mistakes I see with entrepreneurs and people who want to attain success is they quit before they ever actually get to the part where they start to see the changes, they start to see the adaptations taking place, they start to iterate and see the growth and actually get excited about moving forward. They get discouraged at some point and they fall off, okay? So iteration, whoever can iterate the most times is going to win. Dean Graziosi, one of my mentors, likes to reference The Greatest Salesman Who Ever Lived, the book by Og Mandino. And the third success principle in that book is that I will persist until I succeed. You have to persist until you succeed, because iteration wins. So the more you persist, the more you go through this process, the faster and faster you'll get at it. And the better and better you'll get at actually focusing your mind on your core directive, on the prime directive, and directing your brain in the direction it needs to go. So that leads us to our third principle. And the third principle that we have here, if simplicity scales and complexity kills, and iteration wins, then the third principle is that focus is king. Because as Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows. And one of the things that I found, and this is another thing that I learned from Dean Graziosi, he says that you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? We get rewarded in public for what we practice in private. So the more that you focus on this process, and the more that you dig in and really work on being persistent until you succeed, and you keep your mind focused on where it needs to go, the faster and faster you'll be able to iterate through this process, and the more success you'll actually receive. So that is the initial example of how the DAI success philosophy is designed to work. It's a way of thinking where you actually set your prime directive, you focus your mind on the direction you want to go. You make the adaptations you need to make based off of the perceptual feedback that you actually get. The feedback that you get from looking at what's stopping me. What's the positive or negative impact from letting those things actually stop me? What adaptations can I make, and what timeline do I actually want to see those adaptations take place? And how will I know when I've actually achieved what it is that I'm looking to achieve? How will I know when I'm actually moving in the direction to close this gap? And then iterating on the process and looping back through it again. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you want some resources on how you can actually apply the DAI success philosophy into your life and achieve greater and greater success, then you can go to mindvaultllc.com, where I've got, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get 7 days where I will actually walk you through the DAI success philosophy. Each day you'll get a different part of the process to actually help you to implement it in your life. And on the last day, you'll actually get my journal that I created that actually helps me go through this on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis, so that I focus on moving in the right direction. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this helps you to be able to move in the right direction for yourself, and I hope that you'll achieve more success along the way.